The Surfing Violinist presents Handling Feedback, Violin Vlog 47. I was once rightly reprimanded by longtime channel fan and supporter The Indian Dude for having a weak appreciation of and concern for comprehending and maintaining the gear necessary for modern music performance. I've never been a gearhead when it comes to music, as I've said before. While listening to the Count of Monte Cristo audiobook, I reached the chapter in which a banker is having a face-off with his daughter about marriage arrangements. His daughter chooses the drawing room to host these negotiations because she says that his office, with all its gilded account books, bills, and contracts, encourages him to steer all family interests towards financial and fiscal bottom lines. As an artist, she would rather surround herself by aesthetic reminders of beauty and family. Her banker father breaks the news that they are on the edge of ruin, and without those seemingly suffocating accounts, they would never have had the means to maintain the drawing room with all of its aesthetic charms in the first place. The genius of this book is to show that neither idiosyncratic specialization is feasible in the world that looms ahead. In between the soon-to-be starving artist and the preoccupied miser, a third path is presented, and it is the book's hero, the Count of Monte Cristo. A Renaissance man who is as comfortable with meticulous financial speculation as he is with fashion and finery. For the performing artist, there can be no refuge from mechanical improvement, whether it takes the form of the practice of one's instrumental skill or the mastery and maintenance of the machines that have evolved to make music production the most efficient. Without Anthony Peebles and the Indian Dude, and witnessing the indomitable pluck of the parking lot pan fiddlers, I most likely would have wallowed in armchair critic classical music snob mode for years to come. This month I had 5 big wins that took me to a new level in terms of confidence as a solo performer, which didn't last too long thanks to a bit of audience feedback, we'll call it passive-aggressive heckling, but it got under my skin just enough to bring me back down to earth. Nonetheless, even the heckling can be useful. The customer may not always be totally right, but there is almost always gold to be mined from bad notes. But first, 5 bits of good news. The first was an invite to be the music at a one-of-a-kind event hosted by Roxanne and family and friends in celebration of their Scottish and Irish heritage. I muddled my way through some Celtic tunes, but the vibe was so singular and they were such gracious hosts. I hope to provide their music again next year and plan to come prepared with a better command of Scottish, Irish, and miscellaneous folk and fiddle in between and beyond. On November 11th, I was honored to play Ken and Crystal's wedding at Live Oak Plantation in Vernon. I fell in love with the venue. I used the same trusty amp that Indian Dude provided years ago. The experience I've gained over the past few years, combined with this phenomenal location, brought out the best I think I've sounded in years. It felt good to sound good. I'm usually just not happy with my mixing or my settings, but this worked. Ken was very complimentary, and I hope the best for him and Crystal. I did not record my performance during the ceremony, but I played a few extra songs after the recessional for background as they began their photos. I've uploaded one on my Simple Violin channel, a cover of Nothing Will Be Easy from Downton Abbey, which features a melody that is used prominently in Lady Mary's plotline in later seasons. On November 16th, I was invited to play at Dillard's. When I was a kid, it was the closest department store entrance to the toy store in the mall, so the space accumulated its own nostalgia by association, making visits with my grandmother to the store that was then known as Gaffer's much less boring to a kid of my preoccupied age. It became the setting for the beginning and ending of a music video idea that has been living in my brain for over 15 years, set to the Mars Volta's Day of the Baphomets, and then acquired even more nostalgic inertia when I discovered the Perfume Nationalist podcast back around 2019. Jack reintroduced me to the world of scent fashion, a side interest that has paired well with my aesthetic reformation in the years since. So this particular gig was a homecoming all its own. In payment, I got a new scent, in fact. I'm a sucker for sweet scents, and this Gucci Guilty Elixir for Men has a prickly sweetness that has been stuck in my head since I first tested it. Now that we're in fall, it reminds me of some kind of pumpkin spice banana bread mixed with cactus, or as Flex Yo Face says, you smell like a banana Play-Doh cement creamy. Anyway, this gig was a culmination of a lot of tangential threads in my life, and it was the first time I performed on my new amp/PA, the Mackie Showbox, which can be used under battery power. I'm still learning the ins and outs of this equipment, but the convenience of not needing to be relegated to some wall near power or having to worry about trip hazards with extension cords is a game changer for me. On Sunday, November 17th, I was honored to yet again provide the music for Deli Melly's Supper Club. Learn more about that in the Masala vlog. Here I was able once again to utilize the battery power of the new Mackie Showbox to free up my positioning and setup a bit. Usually Mel is so focused on dish prep and presentation and being a good hostess, she does not have time to enjoy the music. But this time she was able to hear more of my renditions of old Bollywood songs we've listened to for years, and I felt a lot more at home playing them. And then on November 20th, Eric Wave had invited me to provide the music at Trayton Homes' grand opening for Seagate at Clara. Again, I was able to use the battery power of the Mackie Showbox to free up my setup and provide a performance that received probably the most compliments I've gotten at a special event in years. All 5 of these gigs really extended that feeling of home that I've talked about with my favorite gig location in recent years, Bergen Barrel. So it wouldn't be the soap opera that is real life without a little conflict and intrigue at the very venue that has felt so much like home for the last 2 years. On Friday, November 22nd, I received numerous noise complaints from a table of older customers. I say I received, but they were too passive-aggressive to ever tell me during the show. They kept complaining to the bartenders who, accustomed to normal guitar and singer performers, did not agree that my level was beyond the pale. Keep in mind, it's a Friday night at a bustling bar in which the room noise floor is pretty loud anyway. If they'd come up and asked me nicely, we could have changed the level. I would have been frustrated because without a monitor, it is hard for me to hear myself or my track over bar chatter, but I have adjusted my volume every other time in every venue, including this one, after being asked by customers or staff. The gig was over and I'd packed my stuff up, but I forgot my jacket. I was ready to get home, so I scurried back to pick up my jacket off the coat rack as 2 ladies are kind of blocking the entrance, I suppose waiting for the rest of their party. She makes a joke about being the doorman, and then after I grab my jacket, she says, "Oh, you're the violinist." And she says, "You're so talented," but I can tell by her voice that this compliment is a Trojan horse. So how does she navigate the revelation of her critique? With a polite, "Next time the volume could be a little lower?" No, she says, "But the volume was intolerable." With the same tone I assume her heckler's corner was using with each other to mock the stupidity and egocentricity of the kids these days in the bar on a Friday night.
Oh, that's Creep by Radiohead. Thank you very much.
So I did not back down, and we had a face-off. And I said everyone loves a violin as a set piece to look at, but it's a loud bar and I could barely hear my violin. So I guess next time I'll just turn myself all the way down, not hear myself, and you just look at me and say, "Oh, wow, how talented he is. Can't hear him, but that's fine. At least he looks okay." So here's where the bad note becomes a good note. I need better monitoring so I can hear what people hear and what I need to hear in order to perform well. Once again, I've put off for too long learning the requisite skills and techniques that have solved many of the problems that I'm only now just starting to swim in. I did not handle her critique well at the time, and while the customer may not always be right, a prima donna is not a professional in a changing world. You have to adapt, and if there is a third path between making everyone happy and going out of business, it's incumbent upon the professional to take the burden upon themselves to make as many customers happy as is possible. I think the setup I used the following night with my trusty old amp as my monitor helped navigate a third path between deaf performance and tone-deaf critique more effectively. Until next time, keep practice, performance, and production consistent, even if your muse isn't. Godspeed, virtuosos in training. To see these videos early, without ads, join the lineup here on YouTube. You just need a YouTube account, and for $1.99 a month, you click this little join button and sign up to get early and ad-free access to 4 monthly vlogs: the surf vlog, the violin vlog, the masala vlog, and the family vlog. Thank you very much.